Greetings to all listeners and viewers in the name of Jesus Christ. Today I wanted to start a new series titled The Unreality of the Real World. And the focus of this series will be to bring your attention to a lot of information in this world that is generally perceived to be the truth, but after doing some research and digging, it turns out that it is a lie. For example, like the moon landing hoax, the space hoax, the flat earth hoax, not the flat earth truth, but the solar system, and the hoax of nuclear energy and such. The purpose of doing this is that the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verses 3 and 4 that if our gospel be hid, it is hid from those who are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds. Pay attention to that phrase, blinded the minds of them that believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. So whether people realize it or not, the whole world, as the Bible in 1 John chapter 5 tells us, lies in wickedness. It lies in wickedness because the world, generally speaking, except for very few that actually believe in Christ Jesus and who have been translated out of darkness into his marvelous light, are aware that they are living in the matrix, that almost everything that they have ever believed is a lie, that the whole world is unreal, it is matrix, it is a hoax, it is fake. And when we begin to realize that, then where does it lead to? If you want the truth, there's only one place which will lead to, which will be the Bible, and to God, our Creator, who has deliberately put us in this fake and unreal world so that we can come to understand and to appreciate and value that which is real, which God alone is real, and everything else is unreal. It is fake, it is a hoax, which will one day vanish right before our eyes. Like a facade of the building in the old Western movies. They had a whole town which was built out of plywood, and then if a guy leaned against it, the whole town would fall down. Something like that. That is what the purpose of doing this videos is. Now, I had posted a couple of videos a few weeks ago, that as Christians we shouldn't spend a great deal of time pursuing worldly information. And some people, when I speak about flat earth, have questioned that, that if I am myself advocating that we should not worry about what Justin Bieber or Beyonce or Lady Gaga or Donald Trump or the Pope, what they are up to, and what kind of occult symbols they're flashing, and what kind of ceremonies they are doing on Super Bowl Sunday, etc. This information about the hoax or the unreality of the real world, it serves a different purpose. Because when you do begin to realize the lie, then where do you want to go? You want the truth, right? And where is the truth going to lead you? To the Bible. It is going to strengthen, especially for Christian people who have been duped by all these lies. It is going to draw them back to their Maker, to their Creator, to their God, to the Lord Jesus Christ, and it is going to strengthen their faith. That is my purpose in doing this. Most of these videos that I'm going to link, that I'm going to upload here, most of the content is not my content. There's plenty of people that are doing good research and posting this online, and my travels on YouTube, I have come across them over the years, and some of them I have saved, and I figured that this would be a good point to upload them here, to re-upload them, I should say, of course with a link to the channel of the original creator, the person that created it in the first place, and once again to jolt your minds, the minds that have been blinded by Satan, to begin to unwrap them like a mummy, wrapped in clothes in one of those old black and white movies, and they take they unravel or unroll that bandage off them, by turning them to circles and around. And that's what I hope to do with your mind, is to take those bandages which keep us in darkness off your mind, so that you can begin to see the reality, see the real world, see the real creation of God, and ultimately see the real Creator, who alone is truth. Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. He meant absolute truth. And outside of him, there is no truth. So that is the purpose of doing these videos. Today I'm going to post this video on the the fakery of the nuclear so-called energy and nuclear bombs. Okay, one point in time, even going back to 2011, 12, 13, etc., even into 14, I firmly believed in nuclear energy and and the disasters of Fukushima, etc. I did interviews with Loren Murray, who was one of the big spokespersons for this battle against nuclear energy, until I came to realize that the whole thing, when you really begin to look at it closely, is not real. Fukushima was supposed to have killed the Pacific Ocean, and when you begin to really analyze that, really, I mean, and if it's going to kill the whole ocean, and people have no idea how big the Pacific Ocean is and all life in it, should it not have first killed everybody close by, like close to Fukushima and close to Tokyo, which is not that far away? Should all the people that are on the ground not have been killed off first? Should that China syndrome that they keep warning us about, not have taken place? So, life goes on, da da dee da dee da dee la 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 dee da da la la, like they did after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The cities have been built, people are living, they're thriving, same thing with Chernobyl, life is going on all around it. So these are the type of things we need to begin to question, and when we do, then it does become apparent that the world is not just a little bit lie, it is all of it a lie. So I will be showing a series of clips that I have found on YouTube, and I will also add my comments from time to time to show that this whole nuclear, threat of mutually assured destruction, etc., was one big hoax perpetrated upon the world. And when people keep in mind, they say, why would the Russians go along with it? When people understand the Bible says that, Satan is the God of this world, he controls all the governments of this world. The Russians, the Americans, the British, the French, the Germans, the Japanese, no matter who. Okay, they are all under his thumb and they're all subservient to him, and they must all do his bidding or they are swiftly dealt with. It doesn't matter if it's a president like John F. Kennedy or a little tin pot dictator somewhere like Pol Pot or someone, they are swiftly removed and usually killed. All right, that is the reason why. So we think that that there are real countries and they have real differences. In the spirit world, which is the real world, as opposed to the fake world, Hollywood, the CNN world that you live in the real world, there is only one government, and that is the government of Satan, above whom, of course, is the government of God, who is in control of everything, including Satan. And Satan is allowed to exist and work his evil because it serves the purposes of God, many of which I have discussed in my other videos. And if you're interested in finding out more, I would recommend that you go and watch my Bible history and my Bible studies videos. Before I continue with the rest of this clip, let's look at a little history of this place called this. You see, it says that this has been produced at Lookout Mountain in Hollywood, California. This movie clip that they're going to show you. And this is the history of this place called Lookout Mountain. It was in Laurel Canyon and in the Hollywood Hills in California. And this place has a really, truly remarkable history. And not only that, in movie production, and most people are not going to be familiar that the DoD, Department of Defense, has been in the movie business since the very beginning of movies. It would not be surprising if actually this whole movie industry came out of the U.S. military. Okay? People like Charlie Chaplin, Harry Houdini, they've all been associated with the DoD, and all of the major directors and actors, they have been in contract, not necessarily to their studios like MGM, but more particularly to the DoD. So there's this article here. I'll put a link to this here. It's an interesting article on slate.com. Lookout Mountain, Hollywood's top secret nuclear film studio. Atlas Obscura on Slate is a blog about world's hidden wonders. Okay, on Wonderland Avenue, look at the name here, on Wonderland Avenue. It is truly surreal, the use of these words, these names, that this laboratory, this movie studio is located on Wonderland Avenue in Hollywood, California. My goodness, how much more obvious can it be that what you're going to be witnessing is a fiction. It's a Alice in Wonderland movie. It is not reality. On Wonderland Avenue in the Hollywood Hills, there's an 8-bedroom, 12-bathroom compound that was built in the early 1940s. Keep that in mind. It was built in the early 1940s. So the history of this, again, like I said, the movie involvement of the Department of Defense in the movie industry, in propaganda, it goes a lot further than most people will believe. Even actors like John Wayne and all these, they worked for the military, and they were like basically agents whose job it was to hype up the war, the hoopla about the war, like you had those native Indians, when they went to war, and they'd be whooping it up, to get people worked up into a frenzy. That's what the job of these guys like John Wayne was. On Wonderland Avenue in the Hollywood Hills, there's an 8-bedroom, 12-bathroom compound that was built in the early 1940s. The exterior is a little drab, and there is nothing particularly remarkable about its appearance, but the complex, once known as Lookout Mountain, has an incredible history. Between 1947, keep in mind here, 1947, right when this alleged nuclear age came into being, between 1947 and 1969, some of Hollywood's most talented scriptwriters. Who? Hollywood scriptwriters. Why would the Department of Defense need scriptwriters if all they're doing is filming these actual events that are going on? Unless they're not actual events. Most talented scriptwriters, producers, editors, and directors made furtive journeys. Why furtive journeys? Why not openly? Why furtive journeys to this place to work on a top secret project filming nuclear explosions? And one of these big directors, of course, was Stanley Kubrick, including his movie that, 2000, not 2001, sorry, the other movie, but The Bomb, Dr. Strangelove, okay? Very influential movie that kind of, made a parody, but is very told in a very comical way. But the hidden message, of course, was, the threat of nuclear annihilation, we're all going to just blow up. So he was one of those directors, and pretty much like, all these big-time Hollywood dudes, they work for the CIA, for the Pentagon, for the military, and that's who they work for. And their job is to propagandize you. Like, all the world's a stage, said William Shakespeare, and trust me, it is far bigger stage than you can imagine. Like, you go to the IMAX movies or something, you see those big 3D movies nowadays, and they seem pretty real. But they are nothing compared to the movie that you're watching every day, 24/7. Okay? I think it's time for us to wake up and to realize that this is all fiction. The United States Air Force established Lookout Mountain in 1947 in order to produce movies and photographs of nuclear tests. If these are real tests, yeah, you can get a talented, cameraman or a director or something, to frame the shots. That's all you need to do. But that is not what the purpose of these studios was. This, like the moon landing movies, they were carefully script-written, they were produced, they were directed, they were acted in, and above all, it was the editing. And when we begin to watch these clips, then this editing becomes quite clear that, this is not like one continuous sequence that is being played. It really is a Hollywood movie production with good editing, sound effects, and everything to make it seem real. And, like I'm going to, after I finish playing this clip that I'm going to play for you, I'm going to play another clip from an Indiana Jones movie by Steven Spielberg, which is exactly based on this fiction. But they say it's based on reality, but is it? So it is that black and white fiction was later on transferred by Steven Spielberg into a nice, Technicolor, a Technicolor clip featuring Harrison Ford, but it's still all fiction. The United States Air Force established Lookout Mountain in 1947 in order to produce movies and photographs of nuclear tests. It was a full-service facility. Military and civilian filmmakers would head to test sites in the Nevada desert or Pacific Islands, capture footage of exploding bombs, and bring it back to Laurel Canyon for editing and post-production. The actual reality is that these things were all done in a stage, that just like the moon landings, that the stage was made where these explosions took place with models, and they were filmed, and the job of the filmmaker was to make it look real. There was nothing going on in the Nevada desert and out in the Pacific Islands and all that. All myth, all fiction, and you watch a few of these clips, and it becomes like it is, especially back from those days. The unreality of these clips becomes so obvious that you go, how the heck could we have been duped? But it is still a hoax that is going on to this very day. The facility was equipped with a soundstage, screening room, film storage walls, and naturally a bomb shelter. During its 22 years of operation, Lookout Mountain Lab produced approximately 6,500 classified films for the Department of Defense and Atomic Energy Commission, documenting nuclear test series such as Operation Greenhouse, Operation Teapot, and Operation Buster Jangle. They produced movies. They're telling you that. The compound has since been converted into an 8-bedroom, 12-bathroom residence. In January, Variety reported that Jared Leto has purchased the former top secret studios for $5 million. Look at this here. See? Screen, you can see that produced by United States Air Force, Lookout Mountain Lab, Hollywood, California. Telling you right off the bat, it's a movie. That's what you're looking at. Okay? Russia has A-bomb. And all done as a hoax to perpetrate this so-called Cold War, where you could then increase defense spending by a factor of thousands, not just by 5 or 10, but by thousands. Oh yeah, we got big bad nuclear bombs now, everybody can wipe each other out. Well, if you got these nuclear bombs and everybody can wipe each other out, then stop making weapons. What's the point? We get the point. There's no use going to war anymore because you can just push a button and blow us all up like that movie, Dr. Strangelove showed. So why even bother making weapons? But it is to generate the fear. And what do Hollywood movies do, like horror movies, like thrillers, where they have some action and they have music, to stimulate your senses, and that's what these things did. I did an interview with the late David McGowan on the rock music scene and how that was a complete COINTELPRO psyop. Okay, all rock music. You listen to rock music, you are being programmed. Doesn't matter rock music, any worldly music you listen to, your mind is being programmed. That's what's happening to you. That music is being used to program you into believing all these lies and being not just a believer, but a defender of the lies. That's what they make you into. You think that you are a rebel, or you think that you are fighting the good fight or whatever. No, sorry. Guys like Jim Morrison, whose dad was the commander of the fleet in the Gulf of Tonkin, from which came the Vietnam War. Yeah, these kids were trained. They were mind control programmed slaves designed for this purpose, to go out and create the rock music scene and all that. And in that interview with David McGowan, he mentioned this Lookout Mountain Lab and how the Department of Defense was there, the intelligence agencies were there, and they were not just producing movies, they were also producing these so-called rock stars out there like the Mamas and Papas, Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison, all these guys. They came out of these intelligence operations, and it is all fake, my friends, all fake. So I feel like sometimes I think it's a joke, and I feel like laughing, but it's not a joke, it's real. This unreality is real. That everything that you think is real is unreal. That is the reality.
We could get many of the answers to these questions by constructing a complete city at our Nevada proving ground and then exploding a nuclear bomb over it. We could study the effects of damage over a wide area, under all conditions, and plan civil defense measures accordingly. But such a gigantic undertaking is not feasible. Instead, we build representative units of a test city, with steel and stone and brick and mortar.
See, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and this shot that you just saw, I have, this is the picture of these guys that are constructing this so-called city with concrete and stone and everything else, But when you start looking at it closely, these panels, there's like this guy here, he's holding it up, this one skinny guy, he's holding this huge panel up, which obviously is something made out of plywood or something very light material. And in the next shot, next picture that I'm going to show you, again, it looks like, it looks like it's a big concrete block. But when you see like how, a few guys are lifting it up, the reality is it's more like something like styrofoam. So this is a movie set being created right in front of your eyes. And the commentator is conditioning you to believe a lie that, this was a real city that was constructed and with brick and stone and mortar, just as an actual city would be, when nothing, from what we have seen with our eyes, it is apparent that nothing of the sort is happening here. It is just like a movie set from an old Hollywood Western movie with those plywood old Western towns.
With precision and skill, as though it were to last 1,000 years.
Now again, pay close attention to this construction of this building that's taking place. So there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 guys on the bottom, and there's a couple of guys on top. And there's this huge block, which we are led to believe by the commentator with his commentary that this is going to last 1,000 years, that this is made out of some real, heavy-duty concrete. A size of block that big, it will not be supported. Apparently, yeah, there is a crane on top there, but these skinny little wires, hired for 4 places, it is not going to support like such a huge weight. All right, and these 4 guys here, especially the guys that's standing in between, just by the ladder, to the right of the ladder, one little mishap and he would be crushed in there like a pancake. Okay, so this is just ridiculous. These are like, styrofoam panels or some kind of plywood structures of very lightweight material, which obviously is nothing like what we would use in real life construction.
But it's a weird, fantastic city, a creation right out of science fiction.
This was the reason why some of the most talented scriptwriters, producers, and directors and actors were used in these movie productions, because what you're hearing here is a script written by somebody, okay? And he's telling you right up front that this is science fiction. What you have been shown is fiction, okay? But of course, it is presented to you in a way that will lead people to think that it is actually real. By the way, people like George Lucas and everybody is credited with developing these real high-def technologies, etc., but nothing is the truth. High-definition cameras and high-definition movie production goes back to the 1940s, again out of this very this very company on Lookout Mountain, which was a military defense studio. They are the ones that have developed most of the cameras and most of the high-tech equipment and cell phones, you name it. They have all been created by them. And these movie guys like George Lucas, they are just like frontmen that are hired to be the face, and they're given like billions of dollars. And they have neither do they write these stories. They might write some part of it or whatever, but they are given a script, they are given the cameras, they're given all the equipment, and and that's how the story, etc., they're told to go out and make it, because it's the propaganda that needs to be catapulted, in the words of George Bush Jr. All right, but you can see again here, like, this is just totally unreal what you're looking at, yet it is being presented to you as the real world.
A city like no other on the face of the earth.
It is a city like no other city on the face of the earth, because it is a model. It is not. It is something like, a kid would build in his in his playroom. All right, this is a model, or an architect would make. That's all it is. It's a model. It's not a real city like they want you to believe. I mean, the scale of this model is like life size, but that does not mean that the materials that are being used to build it are the same as they would in a real, brick and mortar city as we normally have.
Homes, neat and clean and completely furnished, that will never be occupied. Bridges, massive girders of steel spanning the empty desert.
And one more time, what we're looking at does not match what the commentator, the scriptwriter, is reading out, okay? Because this is supposed to be a massive steel girder, which is going to be which is going to support a massive bridge. If you've seen like massive bridges and like an underpass or an overpass on a highway, etc., those girders, they weigh tons. Okay, and what is this being supported by? It's being supported by this dinky little crane, which is sitting on this little truck that it looks like almost like a Jeep. No, it's not much bigger than the Jeep on the right side. Okay, and this is going to support a massive bridge. I hardly think so. At the best, I would say this is something made out of hollow aluminum tubes or something, which probably one guy, a strong guy, could pick up with his hands. It does not look like anything that would support a bridge that is going to span hundreds of feet. This very same black and white movie was, let's say, updated and filmed in real color by Steven Spielberg and used in one of his Indiana Jones movies, which I will play that clip for you at the end, and you will notice that it is basically exactly the same thing. So what you're looking at here is one black and white movie made by some, writer, director, producer back in the day, and the same thing is again shown in a Hollywood movie. What's the difference? And the answer is there is none.
Railway tracks that lead to nowhere, for this is the end of the line. But every element in these tests is carefully planned as to its design and location in the area. A variety of materials and building techniques are often represented in a single structure.
I mean, this is so obviously a movie set that it's almost comical. If you look on the left side of the screen, which I put a red circle on this big, what is allegedly like concrete blocks. What's holding this up? If you look behind it, there are a few 2x4s or wooden beams there. And other than that, there's nothing that this is even attached to. So there's this huge, wall made out of concrete blocks, and it's just standing there. What is going to hold it in place? Do you see how ridiculous this is? And again, there's this sheet of plywood that this guy is working on, which looks like to me that that's what these are. These bricks are just like painted plywood panels. If you turn this panel around, that's all it is. It looks like bricks on the other side. These guys look like, this is a big construction crew working here to make this massive building. Nothing of the sort. And you can see here, these walls here, you can see those bolts or screws or something like that, which is holding everything in place. This is not made out of brick and mortar. This is just ridiculous, this whole story.
Every brick, beam, and board will have its story to tell. When pieced together, these will give some of the answers and some of the information we need to survive in the nuclear age.
There indeed is a story to be told here, but it has got nothing whatsoever to do with the so-called nuclear age and the age when the push of a button the whole world is going to disintegrate. Nothing of the sort. Because if you look at this picture here, for example, this man is talking about brick and mortar and beams, steel and girders and all that. What does that look like to you? To me, it looks like one of those greenhouses that you see, which have a few hollow metal beams or wooden beams, and they have these thick sheets of plastic on it. That's all it is. You can see even the big door is open. There's nothing inside here. It's just like a little hangar. For one of those old biplanes or something that used to be parked in them, or like a farmer might have one. Even a barn would be much stronger than this. So that is one of the stories being told here. What other stories is this movie production telling us? And you're going to keep in mind the words that are being used: science fiction, story, Hollywood, made in a movie studio, recruitment of top scriptwriters, movie directors. So what is this? Is this not a movie? If you can't see that by now, I don't know what else I can do to prove it to you. Now let's take a look at this allegedly massive city that represented a little real city with concrete buildings and, brick buildings and stone and mortar and giant, steel girder bridges and concrete bridges. Let's take a look at this city. It's on your screen. What do you see here? You see like 2 or 3 buildings. The one building's picture I just showed you, that was like this, a hangar with a few plywoody walls with some little maybe plexiglass on top. That's it. And then they have these 2 other buildings that look like an old gas station that you might see on the highway. But even then, the gas station would have been much, much stronger built than this. This is the extent of the city. And here they made this whole movie production to convince you that, these tests are taking place and they're using these real cities to make sure that you, if you live in a city, are going to be able to survive a nuclear blast. At least you can hand it to Steven Spielberg. He did a much better job creating that movie, the city, in his movie. At least it looked a lot more realistic than this. And what else do they have here? They have like 3 dinky little railroad cars. So probably models, and soon you're going to see they had model trees. You couldn't find an area where they have real trees to do some real testing. Okay, and they have some model trees, and then they have 1 car with a dummy in it. That's it. That's the extent of this movie production. Does what you're looking at on the screen look like any city that you've ever seen? Where is the city here? Okay. And in movies, do you not see explosions that blow up buildings, that blow up, automobiles, ships, planes, you name it, right? How difficult would it be for a movie production company to blow up a few buildings like that? And you know what? When you have like a big fuel bomb, like a big fire bomb or something, they all produce a mushroom cloud. So this whole myth that, it is nuclear bombs that produce mushroom clouds, that is another myth. You see here? So there's 1 car with a dummy in it. The other car, the guy is driving away. There's like 1 little building with a couple other buildings scattered around. There was this alleged bridge somewhere, which I didn't see. And then you had these, a couple of railway cars, which are probably models. So this is the test site. This is what they were going to test on to make sure that, if a bomb hit like a city like New York City or something, that you'd be able to survive? Or is this just something completely different? Is this what they keep telling you, that it's science fiction, that it is a story, it is a movie, like they tell you, produced at what's that called, Lookout Mountain Laboratory, Hollywood, California? Okay, directed probably by some major movie director. Now, back in the day, they just showed these in a movie before. When you went to see the movie, they'd have these newsreels or something. They'd play it for you. A couple of minutes, it'll be over, and people, then would get on with the movie. But that image would stay in their mind of, things blowing up, and that whole meme of nuclear war and nuclear annihilation. That's it. But they didn't have the ability to rewind them, to stop them, to look to each frame to see if what they were being shown was something that was real, or it was nothing more than the movie that they had gone to see. But now with our technology, we can analyze these things, and after such analysis, where it becomes apparent that this is all, just BS, then you got to ask the question, what's the purpose behind it? And the purpose in this case is to perpetrate this myth of the nuclear hoax, which led to the alleged Cold War, which led to the alleged arms race, which has given us the present day largest military force and the biggest military spending ever in the history, in recorded history, that is happening today. That's what it gave us. If you watch this clip here, there's not even a town here, let alone a city. And they keep talking about these bridges now. And when you see the rest of the clip, you will see that, they show these big, something that looks like a bridge being blown up. Where is this bridge? I didn't see it. And these buildings, which obviously is a model made out of plywood and paper or something, that is going to just burn right up. And at the same time, when that whole blast is going on, they have these cameras that are mounted in a pole, and they remain perfectly still and stationary. The men that are in this dinky little trench, they have this massive blast wave coming at them, and they just kind of, duck and get up and like nothing has happened to them. All right. That is not what a nuclear bomb would do if it went off at close range and it was real. Okay. So this here, again, I emphasize, is nothing more than a very poorly made movie back from the 40s or 50s. Okay. It is not even a very well done movie. Yet, of course, in those days, people were, fed this propaganda 24/7. So to them, it was all real. And of course, they didn't have the same type of technologies we do today, which, make it very easy for us to analyze and to go through them and see that this is all one big hoax. So speaking of hoaxes, they were supposed to have been, they were allegedly testing not just above ground structures like you find in a real city. They were also apparently testing some underground structures, which is a picture that you're looking at on the screen. Does that look like underground to you? Like, it's like dug in, like in the sand, like maybe a few feet underground. And if you look at the height of the men, and where the other man is working, this doesn't look like a very big structure. So they just like, dug a trench in the sand and they stuck a few sheets of like tin or something in there and they, bolted them together. And this is supposed to actually, provide you protection. Come on, man. This is a joke, man. This is like a comedy and it keeps getting funnier and funnier.
Underground structures and facilities of various types play their part in duplicating the complexity of the modern city.
Yeah, this is a good history lesson. I wasn't aware that underground structures look like this, but now of course, I stand corrected. But back in the 50s, this is how they defined underground.
The vast research program includes testing such items as covering materials, paints, varnishes, plastics, also various fabrics and samples of clothing. On the outskirts of our test city, a synthetic forest has been erected to determine the protective value of foliage and trees.
I won't comment on this, the insanity of testing like a piece of clothing to see if it's going to survive a nuclear blast, or like, some paint like they're allegedly doing here. But however, I will comment on the trees, because what the commentator clearly tells us that these are synthetic trees. They were going to create a forest, but they didn't even use like real trees, real wood. They are like probably more again like made out of like styrofoam or something. And these trees, this fake tree blast, is very interesting because it's used in many different videos to show you, oh my God, look at the power of this nuclear blast, when nothing of the sort is happening, because all it is like little fake models. They're like toothpicks, probably made out of cork or something. And that's what they were using to allegedly test the most powerful weapon ever made in the history of mankind. It's very obvious that these trees could not have been that heavy, because there's one guy on a tractor that's, bringing this big giant tree in, and there's two guys on the ground who are going to just grab it and, put it into the hole, which has been dug out, and the hole even doesn't seem to be very deep itself. So, you know what? When people see these nuclear blasts with these trees, they think it's a real forest being blown up. Little do they realize that these are just maybe like, little trees made out of some kind of cardboard or styrofoam that are being used in these blasts. And again, this is the reason why, I repeat, they needed like script writers, they needed movie directors, they needed good cameramen to do this kind of production, which probably was very good quality in those days. But of course, like all the movies from the 50s and 60s, compared to what we have today, they are not good at all and not realistic, because they are not real. This is the reality of the unreal world that we live in.
To give us a ringside view of the event, high-speed cameras stand like lonely sentinels, ready to photograph the hurricane of fury.
For those who may still be doubting whether what they're looking at is a documentary or a fictional movie, look at this picture on the screen, okay? There's these three cameras that are mounted in a pole that were going to record this event. And what was the event? They were going to allegedly destroy a city which very much resembled a modern city with a nuclear blast. Now look at the back. Look where the cameras are facing. Do you see any city there? You can clearly see the mountains in the background, and you can see again, like, one or two, three, maybe scattered buildings. Do you see any like major bridge here made out of these giant girders and concrete and stone and brick? I don't. So ask yourself this question: is this a documentary or is this a work of fiction?
Before leaving the test area, a final check is made on the multitude of instruments and technical devices which will record a variety of blast phenomena for future study.
Here's another example of why a professional cameraman, like a Hollywood movie cameraman, and clever editing was required when they made these propaganda movies, of which there were thousands made, and I would say that they are being made today as well. A lot of these propaganda movies end up on YouTube. They also are shown as fictional movies, but they are all, programming to program your reality. They are the tools of the Matrix. Like in the Matrix movie, they were plugged into the Matrix and they were all watching a movie 24/7, which they thought was their real life. And that is exactly what is going on. Like, these movies are one element of that programming. Of course, when you wake up and put your TV news on, when you read the newspaper, when you, listen to the radio, no matter what, like what information, you go to school, you go to your classroom, you go to work, everything is programming, everything. And these are just what I'm showing you with this nuclear hoax is just one big example of this type of programming. But the picture that you're looking at on the screen, like with this clever camera work, it looks like it's this giant wheel, must weigh like about 1,000 tons or whatever, and it's got a diameter of maybe like 25, 40 feet or something like that. It looks huge. But as you begin to play the movie, and then you realize that it is, just a small piece of some sort of equipment, which is very easy for one man to handle. And that is what is being done here, that you are being given the impression that everything is huge and gigantic, which like one bomb can take out. Whereas in reality, it is nothing more than a matchbox city, which is like a model, cardboard, plywood, not even a city, not even a town, not even a village, just a couple of buildings that are going to be blown up by explosives. And you will be given, and through clever editing, that mushroom cloud is a separate explosion that is going to be edited into the movie, and you're going to be given the impression that all this happened, that it exploded and it blew up this giant city with just one bomb. Okay, that's why professional movie directors and cameramen and editors were needed, and were working for the Defense Department and still do. They have the biggest movie production budget in the world, and their movies are everywhere, whether you realize it or not. That is who is controlling the information that you get, and therefore programming your mind with the fog of lies that is called the real world, when it is anything but real.
Now, with all the elements in place, our test city is complete.
I hope you're paying attention to the terminology being used in this propaganda film. The commenter is saying now our test city, I repeat, he said the city is complete. As you can see, there's hardly anything but a city in the middle of this desert wherever they shot this movie. And then on this screen, you see, they're showing you the blast circles. Yeah, this is the blast radius, apparently. And in the middle, of course, would be ground zero. Do you see any city there? If the purpose of doing this test was to understand what would happen if a nuclear bomb went off in a modern city, wouldn't you first of all require a city? That you wouldn't need to do it in a desert where there's nothing around, with matchbox models, unless you had a different purpose in mind than doing some real testing. And that, my friends, is what's going on here. This is just to program and propagandize your mind It has nothing to do with actual nuclear bombs or nuclear blasts. Now we get to the action part that we've all been waiting for very anxiously. And so here it is.
Seconds later, the blast wave reaches the trenches. As the tower of smoke and flame looms overhead, one thought is uppermost in all minds. Now it's over. The fury of it had stunned some, but not one was injured.
Now, in addition to good scriptwriters, directors, cameramen, editors, I guess, and voiceover artists, I suppose they also needed some good musicians. So I hope you are paying some good attention to the background music, very dramatic, because a great drama is playing out right before our eyes. But this scene here with this alleged nuclear bomb blast. It is I would have to say, one of the top 10 funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Now, we could spend like a whole hour, analyzing this short scene, but there are a couple of things in here that I want to draw your attention to, and then perhaps as a homework assignment, you can go through it over and over yourself again and see how many more problems you can spot with it that would prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt that what you are seeing here is anything but a nuclear bomb blast. Now, in this scene here, the men in the trench are beginning to get up, which is happening moments after the blast actually goes off. Now, considering the fact that this video was shot sometime, I would think, in the 50s, long time after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that they were testing, what would happen to a city in the case of a nuclear blast. And having known what happens, when it does go off, as for example in Hiroshima, I'm sure that these men would not be instructed to stand up while the blast wave is headed in their direction. But that is exactly what they do. They, soon as the explosion goes off, they stand right up and put themselves right in the way of this blast wave. And now you shall see what this blast wave allegedly does and how ridiculous it is that these men would get up out of the trench well before this blast wave reaches them. So this next scene is actually quite telling, because you can see that whatever this explosion is, it has enough power that it is going to topple these jeeps and a couple of other vehicles that seems to be in its path, and also just basically disintegrate this house, which is also in its path. Yet when it reaches the men, you shall see, one of the men in particular keeps standing up right through it, and nothing whatsoever happens to him. And you will also notice something also very odd, that the blast is allegedly so powerful that it topples these jeeps over, that it disintegrates this house. The trees are bent over like toothpicks. Yet if you notice in the foreground, there is a pole, and this pole remains absolutely rigid. It does not move, it does not shake. Nothing happens to it. What does that tell you? That this is a splicing together of videos shot in different locations. This is where the editor comes in. I'll come back to the men in the trench in a minute, but I wanted to just go through this sequence in which this house disintegrates. The disintegration of this house is interesting in the way it occurs. So if I go through this here frame by frame, you see that the outer wall, it starts to burn up from the bottom up. This is designed the way disintegration takes place. It is designed to give the impression that the blast wave first hits the wall and then, it goes through the house. But that is not what we actually see. What we see here is that there's a flame comes up basically from the bottom up, and it burns up the outside walls of the house like they are made out of paper or cardboard. So the first thing that happens is that the outside walls, they burn up. Okay, there's the flames that are coming from the bottom up. So it looks like this is some sort of incendiaries were placed in the walls, and they burnt them up. But now look at the disintegration of this house. The disintegration of the house, it takes place, looks clearly that it's an explosion that is taking place from within the house. It can be clearly seen that the outer wall of the house burns up even before the blast wave hits the house. How is that possible? It's possible if this is an editing job where two sequences have been framed together. So what we should pay attention to here, okay, I want to talk about the men in the trenches. But what you should pay attention is that when this blast allegedly goes off, you'll see that the screen goes white, which is to indicate that there's a blinding flash. And once this I believe is a movie technique which is used to hide certain things. So you'll see at certain points in this year when things are blowing up, when the blast wave hits the men, etc., everything just goes white. That is not a natural film sequence. It is definitely an editing job in which this white screen is introduced. But anyhow, so what is happening here is that once the blast has gone up, what these men do, instead of hiding in the trenches, they without any protection, without any masks or anything like that, what they do is they stand straight up and put themselves right in the path of the blast wave. Okay, and this blast wave, as you can see, they're trying to tell us was so powerful that it just through overturned jeeps and trucks and the trees, and it disintegrated these well-built houses, these steel beam girder bridges, everything. Yet these men, they stand directly in the path of the blast wave. Now, as this blast wave hits them, they show some of these men ducking, but I will show you this one man who, without even a pair of goggles, stands right up in the middle. He's always standing all the way through this blast wave going over them. And this very blast wave, which, destroyed trucks and houses, has no effect on this man whatsoever. He is, and we are told no one was injured, no one was harmed. If anything, sandblasting techniques are used to clean buildings, etc. This being a desert, and this, wave, even in a sandstorm, people don't just, in a powerful sandstorm, people don't just stand up right in the middle of it because it can be deadly. Okay, and this blast wave has no effect whatsoever on these men. How is that possible? Because this is, again, using models. It is using different sequences filmed at different places at different times, probably in a studio, a lot of them, that are being pieced together and edited to give you the impression of how big and powerful this explosion really is, when it's nothing like that in reality. Again, by this time, when this movie was made, the effects of radiation were well known. Okay, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, this whole meme about how radiation is going to kill and is going to destroy, and it's very harmful, and these nuclear explosions, they cause a lot of radiation poisoning, and it's very deadly. These were well known. Okay, this was not that this was unknown at that time. This is well after the Second World War that these experiments and tests are being done, sometime in the late 1940s or the early 1950s. So therefore, how is it possible that these men are just, put right almost at ground zero without any protection, and it is expected that they are going to survive, which they do, and they will not be harmed, which it is not. How is that possible? It's possible because, like the sequence that follows, which is from the Terminator 2 movie, it is a movie. In this, in this sequence, you see people burning up and all these buildings and everything being destroyed. But we understand that it's just a movie. In reality, nobody was harmed, nothing happened, because it is all fiction. And that, my friends, is exactly what we're witnessing here is fiction, Hollywood fiction, even, shown to you right in the beginning, like in a movie, you have credits, and it tells you that this is a production of X, Y, and Z Studios, and that's what they tell you right at the beginning of this movie, that this is made in the Lookout Mountain Studios in Hollywood, California, a work of complete fiction. At least in Hollywood fiction, they show us what should happen if these weapons were real. Because a nuclear blast, we are told, the temperature reaches into the thousands of degrees. And therefore, the blast wave is not just going to be like wind, it is going to be a very hot, and temperatures of that wind will reach into the hundreds, if not thousands, of degrees. And what you're looking at the screen, as they showed in this movie, is what should happen to anybody that is standing in the path of the blast wave. At the very least, it would be like, blown to smithereens into 1,000 pieces, if not completely melted, as they showed in this sequence. Now go back and let's watch that sequence with those men in the trenches. Do we notice anything like this happening to them? Of course not. Why? Because this explosion and what they are witnessing is hardly anything like what a real nuclear explosion would be. I think we've analyzed this video enough, and what I have done here, you can go and watch any of these nuclear blast videos. They're always composites. They're different sequences filmed in different places at different times, edited together to give you the impression that this is how a real nuclear blast would look like and how much damage it would cause. All right, so it is like in this video, everything is fake. There's no city. There's a few fake buildings made out of plywood, a few fake Jeeps and few railway cars. And they didn't even show anything about the railway cars. And the, fake bridges made out of like hollow aluminum tubes or something, and maybe even a model, which is not even real, shot in a studio somewhere, fake trees. Everything about it is fake. And especially like that sequence where, these men are getting hit by the blast wave, total fakery. And why is the need for this fakery? Because nukes do not exist. And that is the only conclusion we can draw, that this meme had to be promoted, that, we have like to escalate the arms war, the arms race, so that much more money could be redirected towards the military and increase the defense spending by a factor of hundreds and thousands. Okay, and that is one of the reasons why. But the other greater reason, of course, is that, like I said in the beginning, it is the God of the world. He uses anything and everything to keep people blinded to the reality of their world. Okay, everything in this world is fiction. It is like if people one day are going to realize how much of what they believe was actually a lie, And I would say that 99.9% of what people believe in their life is a lie. Just like this movie is a hoax, everything about our lives is a hoax. It is not based upon reality. Therefore, all our values, all our motivations, all our purposes in life, they are all fake because they have been implanted into our minds from the very day we were born. Like we are told, in whom the God of this world has blinded the mind. This is how it is done. It is done through fake information. And there is no extent and there is no limit to how vast and how far this fakery extends. It extends like into a very small, things that you might be taught in kindergarten to all the way up, if you have like 10 graduate degrees or something like that. It is all fake. The economic systems, the military systems, the education systems, the entertainment systems, the religious systems, everything of this world is fake. And I hope that, when we begin to examine these hoaxes that have been perpetrated upon us on a scale that most people will not believe. You can show them the evidence, but they will still not believe. And that is their choice because they are choosing to live in the matrix. They're choosing the blindness rather than the light. Awake thou that sleepest, and Christ shall give thee light, is the promise. And without Christ, there is no light because he is light. And therefore, we will forever remain in darkness. And when I say forever, means forever, not just a few days that we have in this life, in this body. So I hope that this is something that stimulates your mind. At least it draws attention to the fact that we really are living in that movie like they live, with these blinders upon our eyes, which we need the special glasses, the glasses that come only through the knowledge of the Word of God to reveal to us the lies and how great are the lies that this world is. The whole world is a lie. The Bible says the whole world lies in wickedness. All of it. Okay? So that is why we need to re-examine everything that we've been taught and everything that we have ever believed in our lives, everything that was taught to us by our parents, by our schools, by our politicians, by the news media, by religious figures. Organized religion is a major part of this deception. You need to start questioning it. Otherwise, you may get through this life in a comfortable way, perhaps, that you may not have many challenges, that, you might have a good life, what they call a good life. But remember, those days of your life in this body, they are going to pass like in a flash, like that blinding flash that they show you. That is how quickly your life is going to go by. And then one day you will become aware of the reality and what the price was for you to accept unreality as your reality. Thank you for listening. This is Paul Sandhu.
Wait a minute.
Come on, gang! It's time to go!
Oh, that can't be good.
All personnel, it is now 1 minute to zero time. Put on goggles or turn away. Do not remove goggles or face first until 10 seconds after first light.
Oh, that can't be good at all.
Bomba! Она взорвется! Wait! Wait! Stop! Sure, great! Don't wait for me!
Minus 15 seconds. Minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
So I've taken another, little scene out of that scene from the Indiana Jones movie, and I want you to pay attention to what Hollywood and this constant propaganda about this power of nuclear weaponry and what is supposed to happen is how it has been ingrained into our minds. Okay, but then again, before I go, I will play the sequence with those men being hit by the blast wave, and in reality, they don't even have like a singed hair. See here, like how all these people are literally melting like wax figurines. All that car with those Russians is being blown to Kingdom Come. This fridge, it literally flies through the air almost into space and lands again. How Indiana Jones survived, even if he survived the blast, how he survived this flying fridge is something that can only happen in movies. But nonetheless, you get the picture. So compare the two. Is the reality what we have been programmed to believe, or is the reality something that is entirely different? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. Now compare the Hollywood fiction to what allegedly really happened at one of these nuclear test sites, and then laugh your head off, because in the real version of events, these men, they not only were not covered up in in the movie they showed Indiana was protected by this refrigerator made out of metal and lined with lead, and that's the only way he survived. Okay, whereas in reality, these men, they're standing up as if they are going to the movies, and they're watching a show, because that is exactly what they were doing. And this blast wave comes and they say, "Hello, blast wave, hello there, oh, so nice to see you, we'll see you again," and it goes right over them, and nothing in the least little bit happened to them. So what is this reality of nuclear weapons? Do they even exist? And I would have to say no, they do not. One more time, in this sequence before I go, like from that Terminator movie and this Indiana Jones movie, what becomes apparent is that there is a great deal of heat that should accompany such blasts, which is conspicuously missing from that black and white movie from the DoD from the 1950s. Okay, so like in this movie, again in this clip, as in the Terminator clip, all those dummies are melting and turning into wax. Nothing in the sort happens to the men in the black and white movie, which we are told is a real documentary, even though they are directly in the path of that massive blast wave, like a tidal wave. Thank you again. This is Paul Sandhu.
Lookout Mountain Air Force Station, secret U.S. military film studio in the Hollywood Hills. And it was used to make films of nuclear testing. It's right there in the Hollywood Hills, Hollywood Bowl, Hollywood Boulevard. This is where, in Mulholland Drive, this is where all the movie stars live, right around there. And now Jared Leto actually has purchased this facility as a private home now. So you can see the checkerboard floor, a lot of this pattern around this house, which is a Masonic sign, of course. There's another one, checkerboard floor. Whole house almost seems to have a checkerboard floor, doesn't it? Just about every room. So let's take a look at some of the nuclear test footage and see if it looks real to you.
1, T-0.
So notice this edit right there. It makes more sense if this was just made in a studio, and you notice the music just overly dramatic and some kind of line coming across the water there. There's people watching, and I mean, this is it's just not real, And there's this light. They're manipulating light, which you can do with video. That looks just like a TNT explosion to me. And now, of course, we have the Egyptian obelisk. Now we'll have a lens flare. So a lot of these start, see that? It just starts with a lens flare. And I could do that myself on my videos. It's just a huge, bright light, so you can't see anything. What looks like smoke, clouds. It's just light. In fact, you can see that there's like a ripple in the middle of that looks completely fake. Like a line in the middle of the mushroom part, the top of the mushroom. And it was, they just add light to it. You know, there's some background film footage of clouds, and then it's video compositing. They just add on a layer of something else. The other image of this explosion, which is most likely a miniature explosion done in a lab in the movie studio, or a real TNT explosion with lots of TNT done out in the actual desert or something. Either way, it's just an explosion. And even that, kind of the middle of the stem there, that looks completely fake. It's just propaganda is all it is. It's just lies, deception, and propaganda. And I do believe that this deception will come to play in the end times deception, where there's going to be wars and rumors of war. There's going to be a rumor of nuclear war, and nuclear weapons don't exist, so it's all going to be fake, and it's going to lead people to this panic stage. Probably, most likely Iran threatening to nuke Jerusalem, right, or Israel, and that kind of makes sense. That's what Obama's role, one of his jobs, was to kind of set up that scenario by allowing them to have nuclear power. So now they're going to make a nuke and threaten to blow up Israel, and Trump's going to get involved and stop it, and then Russia gets involved. So the world will be on the brink of nuclear war, just like JFK with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And then the counterfeit Messiah will roll in and save the day, possibly as some kind of ancient alien type of scenario thrown in as well for good measure. Here's another one with the lens flare. You can't see anything. That's easy to do. You can do that effect. Anyone could do that effect. And that's what happens when you point a camera at a sun. That almost looks like the sun, a close-up of the sun. And see those clouds, that's a layer, I think. Those clouds, those dark clouds in the foreground are one layer of film. And then there in the background is the sun, or whatever that actually is, the bright light. And they're just manipulating the light. Could be light on smoke at a real high contrast rate. Now, somebody with more knowledge of video effects would know exactly what they're doing more than me. I'm just pointing this out there, getting you to at least question the existence of nuclear weapons. At least question it, And then look at how it fades to black like that, too. And it always fades to black, and you see that light. Now, to me, it just does not look real at all. So they're faking these nuclear tests in a film studio in the Hollywood Hills that most people didn't know about. And now look at this, these buildings, again, the way the smoke comes and stuff like this. These are miniatures, I believe, like they did in Star Wars, and that they continue to do, right? These are miniature models that are just exploded. I mean, this is a movie set, essentially. It's Hollywood, right? Laurel Canyon is in the Hollywood Hills. And people at real movie studios worked at this facility. I mean, it's all documented. People at all the major movie studios also worked here at this place, So Hollywood is essentially a division of the CIA, or vice versa. Maybe the CIA is a division of Hollywood, who knows? But they're all basically in the same, they have the same role of propaganda. Right there again, just smoke, light, and clouds. That's all you see. I mean, there's no proof that that's real, and it certainly does not look real at all. That light is just a real high contrast light, smoke, paintings, animation, however they did it, layering most likely. In 9/11, they used video compositing, layering, essentially. And it's slow motion, I believe. Slow motion explosions. That's why the clouds barely even move. That's just a slow motion conventional explosion is all that is. And then, people, I've been to Hiroshima, Nagasaki, I've been there. Beautiful cities, by the way. And all that was just, firebombing, traditional, conventional warfare. They wiped out Tokyo, supposedly, and killed 300,000 people in Dresden and all those things. So if those are real, then that's all they did there. Who knows? A lot of theories out there. The whole thing is fake, so maybe that's possible as well. So all you're seeing here is bright lights, lens flaring. Maybe I'll add in a few lens flares myself. You can see I can do it here on my PC. They could do it back then, okay? There was a state-of-the-art facility. See, that's just smoke. Maybe they're just shining a spotlight on some smoke in a studio. Who knows? Or they're just adding in the color and saturating it. You know, and then of course you have the sun and the sky anyway, so you just point the camera at the sun, add some music to it and some sounds of explosions. I mean, this looks like the sun for a starter, and then they kind of expand upon that. So now you got the human guinea pigs out there. There's your flash of light. That's all that was a flash of light, lens flare. And now they're going to look at the thing, and that's just I don't know what those things on the left are either, but that's just a video effect. You know, you have people in front, and then there's like a, you know, in the old days they used to have like a video screen, and they would just be on the stage and a video playing behind them. That could be what that is, or a little bit more advanced than that, but not much more advanced than that. It's just layering. 2 films layered on top of one another. One in the foreground, one in the background. Now they're going to walk towards it. Yeah, walk towards the nuke. Go shoot it. You got to shoot the nuke. They're not in the same place at the same time. Those are 2 different videos layered on top of one another, I believe. Puff of smoke that would come from any conventional explosion. Flash of light. That's all it is an artificial flash of light. That flash of light is not coming from the source of the explosion. It's just an artificial lens flare. Probably a miniature, I'd imagine, and maybe they have some way to get that column, that mushroom stalk kind of thing going on. Could be using airflow in a controlled environment. But even a TNT explosion does have a mushroom cloud effect. Now here's some real TNT, actually. I got this from a YouTube video. This is just regular TNT. All right, so you actually do have fire and the smoke up on top. And you're going to see this actually kind of turns into a mushroom cloud anyway. See that? Now if they should have panned back a little bit more, but there you basically have a mushroom cloud from TNT. That was quite a bit of it. The nuclear footage is slow motion TNT, I believe. And whatever it is, it's just not real, you know, so... A lot of people have figured this out. There's actually quite a few videos out there already on this topic, and I only really came across this a few months ago. Haven't had time to do tons of research into it, but just looking at these images here and the fact that it's made in a Hollywood studio, it makes me believe that nuclear weapons, in fact, do not exist. And something to think about, at least something to question. If you haven't thought of this before, at least maybe you know, hopefully you just question it a little bit, look into it more yourself. You can look at a lot of this footage can be found on YouTube, the actual original footage from Lookout Mountain Laboratories in Hollywood, California, giving us all the best propaganda and deception that money can buy.
There's a vacancy in our newsreel department. We'd like you to help plan the news for 1973.
Come again?
Plan the news for 1973. What are you doing?
I just want to make sure the sunlight's real.
I always tell people, news is the most highly developed form of fiction. The most difficult. Come on. I just want to show you something. There's no obligation to buy. Really. News requires imagination. News requires responsibility. We think you're well qualified. Please.
Double A security, sprinkler systems and other services do not operate beyond this point.
'73. We've only roughed out the news for 1973. Nothing's been given the go-ahead yet, but this is the kind of thing we have in mind. Come.
Today, April 14th, 1973. First historic pictures by Radstar of the combined U.S.-Russian landing on the moon. Shown here are Majors Webb and Mikhailovich taking their first steps into the unknown, firing their retro-rockets to land their spacecraft on the dust-covered surface. A comforting note for us stay-at-homes, both the Pentagon and the Kremlin have announced that the moon has no strategic value.
A comforting note for us stay-at-home. I can't show you any film on this next model. We haven't photographed it yet. But this is the way it will sound.
June the 22nd, 1973. The State Department releases film of the ultimate weapon, codenamed Icarus. This satellite is equipped with a solid reactor. In layman's terms, it can freeze air solid, stopping all missiles, killing all forms of life. Icarus orbits at the same speed as the Earth, can hang in position over every major city that threatens the peace-loving nations.
Rather proud of this one. Come on. Please, sit down, Mr. Larkin.
September the 5th, 1973. The new phase in global warfare. War by example. At 4:32 our time, China took out the remote Indian border village of Bandar, unprotected by the Icarus network. After the first 2 5-megaton H-bombs have fallen, the 9-way hotline finally
Switch it off.
effect. But
This is going to happen in 1973. You're going to make this happen?
No. We're going to make models much cheaper. Then we photograph the models.
Fake newsreels?
That's fake newsreels. For the past 10 years, people have been looking at our fake newsreels and listening to our fake commentaries.
And they accept it for the truth? And you can do it. Stop 100 people in the street. How many of them have actually seen a missile or a satellite? They're just told they exist and they believe it.
Yes, you're getting there. I knew you would.
Well, now, the moon rocket and the satellite, that you can get away with. That's too remote for people to grasp. It's too far away, but this... I mean, you invented this village on the Indo-Chinese border.
Oh, yes.
Well, somebody could check up.
Very mountainous territory up there. There'll be no survivors in 1973. No rescue work. Radiation scare.
Yes. You can do it. This could be the news for 1973.
Not necessarily exactly like this. We only plan in detail 1 year ahead.
Oh, you only plan 1 year ahead.
Hey, tell me, what is the news item that's bothered you the most in the past year, 1967?
Oh, well, it has to be the new American intercontinental ballistic missile, the Boy Wonder, doesn't it?
Just the one I asked him to set up for you. The new ICBM, codename Boy Wonder, with a much-talked-about Mercury warhead. I haven't any special effects up here, but perhaps with the proper sound. Blast off. And Robert Larkin, television director, high IQ, 35 years old, is scared. Scared by nothing. It doesn't work. It's a scientific impossibility. The same goes for the much-talked-about Mercury warhead. Perspex.
Well, if this rocket doesn't work, then the others...
They have a fireworks party at Cape Kennedy almost every other day. Well, you didn't really believe there were all these things whizzing about up there, did you? Sputniks and rockets. Astronauts crossing their legs for 8 days.
How long has this been going on?
Since Hiroshima.
And the H-bomb, you mean, that doesn't work either?
Right. Dirty.
Well, what about the Russians? They're supposed to have quite a pile of these things.
We were surprised when they started their tests. Then we got a few feelers from their Secret Service. Nowadays, we work very closely together. Oh, all these stories about spies going off to Russia. Mr. Philby, remember? Just good copy for the Sunday papers.
Good copy. Well, the Chinese, I mean, they've just announced their bomb.
Yeah, we played along with it. We recorded their phony explosion. We're rather hoping the Chinese will come along, complete the pattern, you know. We control the situation. There's no danger of world war. Just a simple choice for everybody. Capitalism or communism. Strawberry or vanilla. Nowadays we know better. Politicians are easy to control. The grosser mentality boys who like to be photographed getting in and out of Daimlers in Whitehall. They come right at the bottom of our organization. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work.
Troubled, weary, lonely Christian, you know you're gonna make it. Struggling with your old life, but you know you're gonna break it. Growing in the Lord, the way is long and the path is narrow. God'll be your shield, so the devil's dart is just a broken arrow. Broken arrow. Facing your failures and starting again, it's such a hard road to victory. Sharing your burdens and bearing your soul, no one ever said it's easy. But growing in the Lord, the way is long and the path is narrow. God'll be your shield, so the devil's dart is just a broken arrow. Broken arrow. Talk to him so naturally, 'cause you know he's always there. Growing in the Lord, the way is long and the path is narrow. God'll be a shield so the devil's dart is just a broken arrow. Broken arrow. Gaining in strength and confidence, you've gotta tell the world. Your actions speak louder than words, now that Jesus has invaded your world. Growing in the Lord, the way is long and the path is narrow. God'll be a shield so the devil's dart is just a broken arrow. Broken arrow.